Why you as a man will never find the one. My name is Meessen and I'm a professional dating and relationship coach, and over the years I've helped men from 23 different countries find the right girlfriend, life partner and get a better dating life. And I am aware that it sounds quite counterintuitive to hear the words that you'll never find the one from a dating and relationship coach whose entire job it is to help men find a high quality, meaningful relationship. But the concepts we're going to discuss in this video will help you find an amazing relationship, and the concepts we're going to discuss are really dear to my heart. This is really a message from my heart because there's millions of men in this world who are suffering because they don't understand the fundamental principles that I will teach you here today. So if you listen to this video all the way through, it might have a life-changing impact on you forever. So, big promise, let me deliver. First of all, we have to understand that there's 4 billion women in the world, 400 million women that are roughly in your age group. So it is impossible to even think for a second you could have found the one, because the one implies the only one. Even though the word only is never really said, that's what people mean when they say the one. She's the only right one for me. She's my soulmate. That's absolute and utter nonsense. Statistically speaking, if you look at the numbers, how many women in the world have you actually met that you could possibly make a statement like that? So if we look at the fact that there's 400 million women in the world in the right age group for you, and if you live in a city with, let's say, even just 500,000 people, 250,000 of them are women. 10% of them are in the right age group for you, that's 25,000 women. How many of them have you met that you could possibly say you found the one? Now you might say, David, do I have to go and meet 25,000 or thousands or even hundreds of women to be able to find a high quality relationship? No, I just want to tell you that it's impossible to think that you found the one or the only one. And the reason this concept of the one is so malicious, evil, the reason it creates so much pain and suffering for men is because what happens if you find the one and the one doesn't like you back? You go on a couple of dates with her, she loses interest in you. You actually get into a relationship with her and she starts seeing other men. You get into a relationship with her, you make a couple of mistakes and it breaks up. Whatever might happen. What happens if you lose the one for whatever reason? In the initial dating stage, even before that, or after you've been in a relationship for quite some time? Well, if it was really the only one, and another assumption that goes along with it for many people is that the one is the one that's going to bring you most of your life's happiness, and you lose that, well, then the appropriate response is depression. The appropriate response is to feel terrible, miserable. If you watch How I Met Your Mother, a television show I like, but there's a lot of things in there that socially condition you in a completely wrong way. What happened for all of you guys who watched that television show when Lily left Marshall to go to San Francisco, I believe it was, to study art? He laid in bed for, I believe, 6 to 8 weeks, depressed the entire summer. We are taught in society that it is an appropriate response to feel depressed and shit for 6 to 8 weeks after a relationship ends, or even longer. I speak to men from all around the world on a weekly basis who feel terrible for extended periods of time when a relationship ends. And oftentimes, these relationships are actually terrible relationships. They're not good for them at all. And yet, this person, this woman, was meeting your need for love and connection and intimacy in such a unique way, even if it was toxic, even if there was a lack of compatibility, that afterwards, if you don't have options, your mind immediately goes back to her and you can't stop thinking about her. I need to get her back. I'm lying awake late at night, thinking about driving in the car with her. Everything reminds me of her. We went to Starbucks together, we went to the cinema together, and all of these emotions come back up. It is not because she was the one for you. I'm going to give you a bitter pill to swallow that sounds totally harsh and very cold and German. But once you get what I'm about to tell you right now, you will actually be able to liberate yourself from the suffering that comes from these miserable, miserable concepts. You can replace any person in life. Marshall Rosenberg, founder of Nonviolent Communication, says, any need you have, any psychological need you have, for example, the one for love and connection, can be met independently of any particular person. You have to understand that the reason you're even only thinking about, maybe if that's the case for you, this one person that you want to go back to, or the one that you call the one that you lost, is only because you don't have enough sources in your life that fulfill your need for love and connection. And it can be met through dogs, through your family, through your male friends, through female friends, through all kinds of people. But you have to understand that this craving you have is not a craving for one particular person, even though it manifests like that at the level of thought. It's actually a craving to meet your need for love and connection. And the way to get over it is to simply create more high quality options for yourself. And then some men come to me and say, oh, but David, I've gone on a bunch of dates, I still can't get over. Have you actually gone on dates with women who are right for you? Or have you just gone on a bunch of dates? Because it's not just about quantity. You have to have, look, if you want to replace somebody who you were in a relationship with, who you thought to be the one, you have to find somebody who has all the same positive characteristics that you appreciated in that person, but none or almost zero of the negative characteristics. But you can replace that person. It's so important that you understand that the one doesn't exist. Men kill themselves over this shit. Society emphasizes the suffering of women quite heavily. And do women suffer in relationships? For sure. Are plenty of women out there being treated horribly by men? Of course. Does that have to be emphasized? Do we have to talk about that? For sure. At the same time, there's not a lot of people, even though the narrative is changing slightly in society now, who talk about the suffering that men go through in relationships, either because they're married to the wrong person, like I was, or because they don't have enough people in their life, or because they don't have anybody in their life. And the sooner you understand that the one doesn't exist, you actually liberate yourself to the idea that you can find a meaningful, long-term relationship with somebody you want but not need. Because as long as you as a man believe that you need that person, because let me tell you something, the worst thing that can happen to you is that you actually get into a relationship with a high quality woman and then you start acting needy because deep down you haven't overcome this fallacy, this socially conditioned, this Disney movie fantasy of the one yet. Therefore, you're so afraid of losing her and she begins to feel that you need her as opposed to just wanting her. Any woman that you desire should clearly feel that you want her but that you don't need her. And there's plenty of ways to mess things up once you're in a relationship with her, even though compatibility off the get-go is the number one predictor of success in the relationship and not couples therapy or communication later on. But you have to understand that once you're in a relationship with her, if something should happen, yes, you're going to feel bad, but you don't have to feel terrible for a month or 2 or 3 or even longer. If you have the right habits, God forbid, something happens. Let's say she dies. Let's say she ends up with some other man. But like, if you've chosen the woman carefully, she's probably not the kind of girl, she's probably not the kind of woman to go do that. But if anything happens, the relationship ends, and you lose her, you do not have to be depressed for weeks on end. Are you going to feel terrible for a day, 2 or 3? Yes. But then it comes back to process. Do you have high quality men to spend time with? Do you go to the gym regularly? Do you go to the sauna? Do you take care of your nutrition? Do you feed your mind every single day with personal development, motivational, and business content or not? If negativity comes into your ears in the form of pop music, oh, I miss you, never mind, I'll find someone like you. I wish nothing but the best for you. I remember, da-da, I beg, don't forget me, da-da-da. You know that? That is conditioning. You don't even understand to what level you've been conditioned by music, Disney movies, and radio, television shows, all kinds of environmental factors. Your family, your environment. And some of that conditioning is amazing. Social conditioning isn't entirely bad, but there's a bunch of ways in which that has led to a lot of suffering in your life. So I want you to experience the ultimate freedom of knowing that you don't need anybody, but you want them. And now, it's not. Let's add another layer of complexity. Obviously, once you get into a relationship with anyone, you will feel a degree of attachment. Because remember, I'm not one of those pickup artists. It's not about lying, manipulating, cheating, pretending to be somebody you're not. Once you're in a relationship, there will be a part. Am I afraid of losing Fernanda? No, I am not afraid. Is there a part in me that fears that? Of course, because emotional attachment is real, because that's how our biology works. Now, a lot of people think that the second you actually understand the cause for something, this emotional attachment I feel is actually down to biology, it takes the magic out of it, but it doesn't at all. The relationship I have with Fernanda is so amazing. It doesn't mean that there's zero conflict, but with my ex-wife I had this much conflict, and with Fernanda there's this much conflict. But the relationship is so amazing, so naturally enough there's going to be a degree of emotional attachment. That happens with everybody. It's perfectly fine. But here's the thing. Just because a little part in you is afraid of losing that person because your brain has gotten used to their presence, therefore you trust them, therefore there's a bunch of neurotransmitters fired in your brain, I'm no expert, that bonds you to that person, like oxytocin, for example. Just because that's the case doesn't mean you have to believe the thought that you need that person. Because let's differentiate between a need and a want. If I don't get my want, that's okay. If I don't get what I need, I die. In the end, that's the essence. If we look at need, we'll suffer tremendously. So understand, you don't need any particular person. Now, is that to say that you should give up relationships? No. The number one predictor for human happiness in the long term is relationships. But you will be able to express yourself much more freely in the company of women once you understand you don't need any particular person. Fernanda knows I want her. Fernanda knows I really want her. I'm so happy to have her in my life. One of the greatest sources of happiness on a daily basis. She wakes up in the morning, she's excited to see me. We spend every day together, not all day, but every day we see each other. It's amazing. But I know that if something were to happen, I do not have to suffer for weeks on end. I see way too many men who get depressed and who actually get suicidal. Like, I have clients from all around the world. Plenty of them, some of them come to me, they're like, oh, David, I'm trying to get over this ex, and we help them, no problem. But here, this message for you. You don't need any particular person. I know I'm repeating myself, but you have heard the opposite message your entire life. In songs, in Disney movies. It's nonsense. Please liberate yourself. Create a bunch of options for yourself. Attack the dating apps. Learn the algorithms. Go start meeting women in real life. Introduce yourself. Develop confidence. Create options for yourself. And then you can choose somebody not from a point of, I'm deprived of female energy, attention, love, and connection. No, but from a place of, wow, I actually feel really good. I have a bunch of options. I don't need that person. But she's way more amazing than the others. There's things about her that are just, it's easygoing. Conflict-free. Not completely conflict-free, but in comparison to what I had before, minuscule. And then another, just quick little side note, another important qualification criterion, like point of qualification that you should have when it comes to the selection of a long-term partner is her attitude towards conflict. Because once conflict happens, what's her attitude towards it? Because some women and some men enter conflict in a relationship with a me versus you attitude, as opposed to this is me and you against the challenge. Okay? This is us together as opposed to me against you. Just a little thing, just a little important thing to consider when you meet several different women. But you won't even have the headspace to consider all these things that are important enough to you. You won't even be able to hold up a high standard if you don't have options. And if you don't have options, you naturally get needy. If you haven't eaten in 3 months and then somebody invites you to a German restaurant where there's a bunch of pork or beef, it's just like really good food, or for the vegans, amazing sweet potatoes, really good stuff, you know. If you haven't eaten in 3 months, yeah, you're going to be acting pretty needy when you see that food. It's completely normal. So get yourself options. And you have to understand, it is not a weird thing to create options for yourself. Creating options for yourself is the most normal thing. Our brain has been shaped predominantly into its current form from what I understand, from what I've read in the books, in the literature, what anthropologists say, around 250 to 300,000 years ago, where we were living in tribes of 50, 100, 200 people. We always, 24/7, had people around us. 24/7. We were never made to be alone. If one person died, as terrible as that is, we still survived. We were able to keep going because there were more people. But what most men do once they get into a relationship with a woman, they isolate themselves. They slightly pull back, and it's a very subtle, very gradual process. They slightly pull back from spending time with their boys, with their male friends. They don't go to the gym 4 times a week, only 3 times a week. Instead of working until 6:30, they only work until 5:15. And if you choose to spend less time at work, that's fine. But understand why you're doing it. You as a man, if you want to be able to have a fulfilling relationship and bring your most positive self to her later on, you have to make sure that you're okay, not needy, that you come into the relationship, to the dinner with your girlfriend from a place of abundance. And abundance comes from having actual abundance, but it starts in your mindset. Once you get this message, you'll never have to suffer for extended periods of time. Now, if the relationship with Fernanda were to end today, would I feel pretty shit for 1 or 2 or 3 days? Probably. But latest on the 4th day, me and my boys, we would go for a cold swim. The next day, I would go for a cold swim, sauna, gym workout, listen to personal development stuff, be productive. I would do exactly what I would do anyway. Help my clients, grow the brand, help people all around the world. I would do exactly what I would if she was there. And then within 3 days of having the right habits, having high quality social contact around you, feeding your mind, changing your physiology, you do not have to suffer. You can take control of your emotional reality. You are not a victim of those circumstances. So, my friend, go, take control of that, put yourself out there, go through the emotional discomfort, and I sincerely wish you all the best.